Yes, John ने join कर लिया है. Yes, John, we welcome you from PITE Sindh Nawabshah. It's really very motivational and interesting for PITE Sindh Nawabshah that John is joined us. And we will listen to his presentation on nutrition and sensitive approaches. On behalf of Direct Regional PITE, I welcome John, and I expect a good presentation from him, and it will be a cross experience of a foreigner with our CPs, and the class is being attended by 152 students here. John, unmute you.
Yes, I'm here. I'm very sorry for our technical difficulties. Please.
No, it's all right. It's all right. We are happy you are with us.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be with you. It's very kind of you to receive me. Just by way of introduction, I am John O'Day. I am the nutrition sensitive specialist for PINS 1. Thank you. Right. I see if I can get the slides to move. If not, it's over to Anam or another person. Right. Okay, Anam, can you move the slides? Thank you very much. I'm talking today about the three food sectors, nutrition sensitive sectors, for which I am responsible within PINS 1. And these are being agriculture, livestock and fisheries. So I will start with agriculture, if I may. And this is the AAP agriculture objectives. This is the plan. The agriculture will help increase the availability of micronutrient-rich vegetables and fruits in the diets of targeted households by introducing small-scale vegetable farming and kitchen gardens. Very importantly, as I shall discuss later, introducing labour-saving technologies for women engaged in agriculture and horticulture, improving quality of production through training from the Department of Agriculture, using specialists in soil, crop, pest and post-harvest management. And again, very importantly, introducing techniques to store and process food for consumers. Next slide, please. Oh, here we are. Yes, livestock. Thank you. Continuing now with livestock. Now, the Department of Livestock aims to increase the number of households consuming a healthy and diverse diet, especially in households with mothers and children below the age of 5. And it intends to build the assets of poverty-stricken families with severely acutely malnourished or moderately acutely malnourished children, widowed women with children, and landless people's households by providing them with livestock. Principally, this is through goats. And provide access to veterinary health services for the livestock of the poor, deprived and malnourished families. And very importantly, raising the awareness regarding nutrition and livestock management practices for at least 265,000 people, each representing a household in 24 districts. Next slide, please. And last but not least, AAP Fisheries. The intention here, the objectives here are to introduce village fish ponds to generate a regular supply of nutritious fish for consumption by local households, to establish a reliable supply source for the sustainable stocking of these fish ponds, and to provide training to village fishing groups in sustainable pond maintenance. I would think that includes feed, and to facilitate the sale of surplus production in order to generate additional income for household members who own a fish pond. The intention here is eat diversely. This is following on from Dr. Zara's presentation. The whole intention, whether it be agriculture, fisheries or livestock, is to increase the increase dietary diversity, increase the quality of people's diets, particularly the very vulnerable, by providing, in the case of agriculture, fruit and vegetables, which many people don't have even that. And in the case of livestock, through goats and through poultry, principally milk and eggs, and through fisheries, inland fisheries, fish ponds, freshwater species of fish, such as carp or tilapia. And here we have the various types of food groups which Dr. Zara has referred to, starting off with staples. That's improved if you have legumes and nuts and fresh vegetables. But as I intend to talk about later, you really need to get to 4 different food groups at every meal, or at least 1 meal in per day, by including some sort of animal foods. Thank you. Next slide, please. One particular aspect I wish to deal with, nutrition comes down really to the essentially to the empowerment of women, the low empowerment of women, the very large burdens, work burdens, physical work burdens that they face. And a lot of this is to do with agriculture, which is why AAP Agriculture wishes to mechanize some of the female tasks to make life easier. Now, in a rural household, typical rural household, a woman has to carry out physical tasks for agriculture, has to collect water, and has to cope with other household chores. Now, all of this leaves less time available for cooking, preparing food, and feeding children frequently enough. Young children require frequent feeding, especially if they are fed low nutrient density, mainly plant diet. In other words, if they're not getting a diverse diet, and if they're able to consume only minimal of the food groups, principally plant foods, cereals, legumes, possibly vegetables. Now, this is a problem. The work burden is a problem, especially for female-headed households. Next one, please. Thank you. Now, linked with this, the frequency, this is a chart illustrating the frequency of child feeding. Now, this does assume that this is, I think, fairly sort of a standard one that assumes diversity to a range of foods, which many people don't have, particularly the households that we are trying to support through the AAP. So from 6 up to 9 months, when complementary foods are introduced at the weaning stage, this is what is required. This increases from 9 to 12 months, and then from between 12 to 24 months. Now, if you are feeding children on a very restricted diet, the frequency of foods to give the right amount of energy, of protein, and essential micronutrients increases. If you can, as I'll talk about a little later, if you can put it, this is not such a problem if you have access to quality animal foods in addition to quality fruits and vegetables. Next slide, please. Now, fruits and vegetables, they have a lot to contribute, particularly if they're fresh and good quality, and eaten when they're fresh, properly cooked and prepared. They are a source of vitamin A through carotenes. They are the source of vitamin C, very important source of vitamin C. Also vitamin E, folate, folic acid, you can get your full requirements of folic acid, folate from fruits and vegetables. This is very important for mothers, for pregnant and pre-pregnant ladies. Also magnesium, potassium and calcium. You can get very good sources of these three from a range of fruits and vegetables, and also very importantly dietary fibre. Now all this depends upon getting as wide a range of fruits and vegetables as possible. Now I will mention here a general health effect. It is observed that populations who consume large amounts of fruits and vegetables in their diets, they are less susceptible to heart disease, they are less susceptible to a range of cancers. But we're not entirely sure exactly which fruits and vegetables are the most important in this regard, nor are we sure what substances within fruits and vegetables are responsible for conferring protection against such diseases. But I think the general rule is to eat as wide a range of fruits and vegetables that are in season, that are available, as possible. Thank you. Next slide, please. Now, if you're eating a predominantly plant diet, as I mentioned before, with the frequency of feeding, this is certainly a limitation. If you have just vegetables, legumes, which do make food more digestible for sure, but predominantly cereals, you have the problem of high dietary bulk and low digestibility. Legumes in a vegetarian diet exclusively will actually increase digestibility, but it's still a problem. So infants require even more frequent feeding. Now, plant foods, if you are subsisting on entirely plant food diet, your diet is limited. Cereals and legumes will provide some of the time the essential amino acids that a growing child or anyone actually needs to synthesize protein in the body. But unless you, most of the time, even if you have a wide range of plant foods and no animal source of foods, you do risk deficiency. Now, plant foods are intrinsically low in some key micronutrients, although they do contain vitamin A in the form of carotenes. There is a problem seasonally when it's not possible to get fruits and vegetables that are rich in carotenes some of the time. So it's better to get the vitamin A from animal sources. Now, a further problem, particularly with a heavy cereal diet or a diet consisting mainly of cereals and legumes, you have a high degree of phytic acid and dietary fiber in the diet, and this inhibits the absorption and or the retention of particularly iron and also zinc. Protein, it's demonstrated that adequate sources of protein, and by this I do mean ASF, which I'm sorry, it means animal source foods. I didn't explain this acronym. Deficiencies in essential amino acids, which make up protein, are clearly linked to stunting in children, physical growth and failure in mental cognitive development. Now, this has been demonstrated by biological studies. It's shown that animal source foods, ASFs, which are richer in protein and contain very good sources of iron and zinc, the best sources of iron and zinc, help prevent stunting. And essential amino acids are necessary for proper cellular growth, and these are more available in animal than in plant foods. Next slide, please. Okay, so here is the simple diagram. I hope it's fairly simple, between livestock production and nutrition, promoting animal production. Animal production should lead to higher dietary intake and improve nutritional status, but it does depend on the caregiver time being able to access, produce, and make these foods available for the child, and also the caregiver's income. It might not be possible, particularly at certain times of the year, to produce one's own food, livestock, animal foods, so you need money, which can be a limiting constraint. And right at the bottom of the diagram is, I put zoonosis. Now this means animal diseases. Keeping livestock for the household is very necessary. It's very, very good to promote child diets. But we have to remember there are all sorts of animal diseases that can be passed on to humans. So you need to keep livestock well away from the actual dwelling where people live. Also, animal feces is a danger, particularly for small children. So this, although livestock foods, animal foods have much to offer and are essential, there are risks, and these have to be carefully managed. Next slide, please. Now, even small amounts of animal foods can make a real difference. They are nutrient dense and they are highly absorbable, digestible sources of essential nutrients, protein, micronutrients, and also fat. Now, what basically, I would stress this point again and again, we're not asking for people to produce massive amounts of animal foods, meat, milk, eggs. Essentially, if a child can have small amounts of animal foods in their meals on a regular basis, this will make a real difference. It's important for very young children because of their limited bodily capacity, gastric capacity, relative to their high requirements, given that this is a stage of rapid growth. And also for pregnant and nursing women, for mothers or mothers-to-be, their nutritional requirements go up during this period. So it's very important foods for both these groups. Now, assuming that people are mainly vegetarian, again, relatively small amounts of animal source foods added to a predominantly vegetable diet, they can substantially increase adequacy of vitamin A. Vitamin A from animal sources is more reliable and a better quality than from plant sources. Vitamin B12 can only be got from animal foods. It cannot be got from plant foods. Also, it's important for riboflavin. Calcium, the best source of calcium is milk. So if you can feed a child milk on a regular basis, in addition to being an important source of protein and fat, milk is also a very strong source of calcium. Also iron and zinc. Iron and zinc from animal foods is the best source. Now, where animal source food consumption is low and populations are afflicted by a range of multi-nutrient deficiencies, the efficacy can be very high, even if you introduce initially only limited amounts of animal foods, but on a regular basis. Now, I would say again, just this to reiterate, animal foods are necessary for adequacy of iron, zinc, and calcium because of their higher bioavailability. Right, next slide, please. Now, iron in meat is heme iron, and it is more bioavailable and better absorbed than non-heme iron from plants. Again, that's reiterating my previous point. animal muscle tissues themselves have an enhancing effect on non-heme iron. So if you are consuming meat with vegetable sources, the non-heme iron in vegetable sources or even cereals, that will be better absorbed through having animal foods in the same meal. Okay. Zinc also, as well as iron, zinc sourced from animal source foods has higher bioavailability and absorption. And cow's milk has a very fine source of calcium, and it has the insulin-like growth factor hormone that stimulates bone and tissue growth in the growing child. Next slide, please. Now, fish are actually cheaper in Pakistan, perhaps not so much in Sindh. They seem to be in deficit in the diet. Fish are very good. They have similar quality, high protein to meat and milk. So if you can't afford meat, then if you can get fish, it will do more or less the same job very well. Now, it has some advantages over meat, animal meat from goats or buffalo or cattle, in the sense that the oil, the fat source in fish, is actually more healthier than the saturated fat which comes from meat. Fish are also an important source of the omega-3 fatty acids that can only really be, the best sources are marine fish, actually. Now, omega-3 fatty acids in every kind of fish, but are especially high in seafood, in sea fish and other seafoods. Fatty fish flesh are valuable sources of vitamin A and D. Thank you. Next slide. Now, looking at how they prevent stunting, there is a demonstrated link between low intake of animal source foods and stunting. This is demonstrated through biological studies, although the number of actual studies where you feed children, one group of children, animal source feeds and compare it with animal source foods and compare it with another group of children who don't have these foods, these are fairly limited. Next slide, please. Now this shows, this is a survey which was done, and this is the table. I'll come on to some more slides in a while, looking at South Asia, the 4 South Asian countries, Bangladesh, India, Nepal, and Pakistan. And this is this was based on surveys in all these countries and a wider number of countries outside of South Asia, 46 countries in total. And it was basically people were asked if children had one animal source food yesterday, in other words, in the last 24 hours, or did they have, or if they had 2. And what types of foods were they? Dairy, eggs, meat, fish. And here are the respective figures for the different countries. Now, fish consumption is lowest in Pakistan, although Pakistan scores well for some types of other food, like dairy. And it actually has only a very low consumption of fish across all provinces. So next slide, please. This was a 46 country study, and children, stunting was significantly higher in children who had not consumed animal source foods, any type of animal source food, in the previous 24 hours. Now, it's demonstrated with this group of countries clear benefits for children eating one animal source food in a day, and especially where they're able to eat two types in a day, any one or two from meat, fish, milk, and eggs. There is, however, it's observed that there's a fairly low capita consumption of animal source foods generally in the South Asia region, particularly for vulnerable, poor communities. Now, just to go through that table, Pakistan has the lowest rate of fish consumption in South Asia, yet fish is the cheapest source of animal source food. If you're buying fish in the market, it will be cheaper than in almost any other type of meat, of course, depending on quality. It's likely that fish consumption is higher in Sindh because of the coastal fisheries, and also there are inland lakes and waterways. Fish is the affordability price issue. It's not such a problem as with buying meat or dairy or eggs. Fish prices need not be so high. So if people are producing their own fish through fish ponds or catching them from rivers or streams, there's not such a strong incentive for these small producers to sell. There's more of an incentive. If it's not going to fetch much money in the market, then there's more incentive to feed the fish to their own children, which is a very good thing. But with any type of animal food, there is still a problem. Any type of animal food is highly perishable, and there are problems to do with supply chains, lack of infrastructure, preservation, cold storage. I say preservation, there are some good traditional methods of preservation. Cold storage is limited, and distribution within and to poorer communities. The next slide, please. Now, what I would stress, whatever intervention is being implemented, whether it's by agriculture, fisheries or livestock, fruit and vegetables, goat milk, eggs, chickens, or fish from various sources, every nutrition sensitive intervention must be supported by nutrition education, behavioral change, in order to ensure that it actually works. So here's a brief diagram which you can use to base a nutrition education strategy, ranging from problem identification, identifying your audience and what they need, developing essential messages, how to get those messages across, and then evaluating them to see if people have correctly understood them and if they're able to put them in practice. They may have understood them, but there may be constraints to the extent they can actually put the nutrition education messages into practice. Okay, next slide, please. Now, interventions must be designed for nutritional improvement. However, not assume that the nutritional improvement will occur automatically. However good a goat project is, a home garden project or a fish pond project is, it has to be made clear to the community through nutrition education that it is intended to benefit nutrition. Otherwise, the chances of it working and benefiting nutrition is very much reduced. So just providing agricultural inputs alone is unlikely to have any beneficial effect on nutrition. You can give a seed package, you can give tools, you can give whatever else is required, but it will have little effect unless there's nutrition education. And another important thing is the integration of agricultural interventions into a broad range of food production activities, not just one, but several. Now, they should be targeted to women. As I've said, if women can be the focus of the project, the focus of nutrition education, if they can drive the project, better still, it is all more likely to generate nutrition impact. Next slide, please. Now, as I said before, as I mentioned, just to reiterate, all interventions need to be supported by nutrition education, behavioural change communication. Without this project, it won't be successful. Messages must be as closely linked to the technical innovation. So obviously, if you're providing goats for improved production of goat milk, then you'll have to talk about how to manage goats so that you can get the best nutrition contribution, and basically what goat milk and also goat meat has to offer in the diet. Okay, so you can link together the effect of soil, agronomy, cropping practices on plant nutrient availability and human diets. Women till the soil, they sow plants, they use particular cropping practices, all of which are going to have an effect on plants which are grown for human nutrition, or fodder which is being produced, or grazing which is produced for animals. Now, all that has an effect on human diets, and people in the villages are quite capable of understanding this set of relationships, providing it's set out well in nutrition messaging.
It's taking time to change the slides as we have a technical problem over here.
Okay, that's fine. Right, thank you. Okay, now nutrition education awareness sessions, they need to be intense. It's not enough. It's like training, it's like training people in agriculture or livestock techniques. These awareness sessions need to be intense. They need to be regular, not just a one-off session. You can't go into a village, say, here are your goats, here are your vegetables. This is how you produce them, and this is what effect it's going to have on your child's nutrition. It's essential to take time over this so you can build up a relationship of trust with the communities over a period of time. Now, if you do this, this is very good, because messages are then more likely to be seen as practical and relevant to local problems, not just some theoretical ideas of experts. Okay, next slide, please. Right, essentially, there's a need for a multi-sector approach. Crops and livestock, there are mutual benefits in practice for people that are keeping livestock and growing crops. Livestock provide manure for the soil. Crop residue provides animal feed, and they're both essential for nutrition. There's a real need for coordination between the three food sectors: agriculture, livestock, and fisheries. Okay, a range of food interventions linked together is going to be very effective. Now, interventions need to be linked at local level, and people from the various sectors, the food sectors, need to. It's good if they can carry out joint assessments, conduct monitoring, and can link together their nutrition awareness, so that people understand the benefits of the foods which are being provided by the different three food sectors. Okay, next one, please. Now, this is just one thought through which food and agriculture can be linked with education. This is not something which the AAP is currently doing, and it doesn't seem to have a long or continuous history in Pakistan, but I think there is a scope here for exploring the possibilities of school feeding using local production. Also having school gardens, producing fresh produce for pupils to eat. Now, there are benefits to everyone. It's a win-win situation. There are benefits to school children through improved nutrition, mental and physical development. There are benefits to local farmers if you have a source of reliable demand through being able to provide your produce on a regular basis to schools. There's every incentive, every stimulus to produce. Okay, so there's considerable evidence from other countries on the success and also the problems in linking school feeding with local farming. So it's if we were contemplating this, it's necessary to choose those examples, those models, which are most suitable for Sindh, because there is a question of sustainability. If you provide food through local agriculture for school feeding, then you've got to keep it going. Okay, I think that's it. Thank you very much.